Welcome to Vape News Radio, the voice of vaping. In each show, we share the latest about regulations and things you need to know, plus upcoming conferences and fests, along with interviews with the movers and shakers in this fabulous vape space. Are you looking to get into this ever-expanding marketplace? Do you want to master this industry? Listen up as Norm Bauer, the VapeMentor, shares it all. And here's your host, Norm Bauer.
Hello and welcome to Vape Radio, the voice of vaping, and this is show number 71. I'm Norm Bauer with VapeMentors, and today's show is sponsored by Vape Genie. We want to introduce them to all of you. They've been around since 2013 and pride themselves on having access to all the cutting edge and new products. We Get Things First is a claim that holds true due to their great rapport with all the big brand manufacturers. Make your shop the first on the block to offer the best hardware, liquids, and other magical devices. They also offer competitive prices, some of the best customer service around, and a generous return policy. They carry an exhaustive list of e-liquids and keep up with all the market trends to deliver the best liquids in the industry. They have no minimums and offer same-day shipping. Contact one of their experienced sales reps today or visit their site at vapegenie.com and register for a wholesale account. Get a quick approval and check out the inventory that day. If you mention coupon code VAPE Radio, they'll give you 15% off your first order up to $100. That's vapegenie.com, where your distribution dreams come true. Today's show is also sponsored by Your E-Liquids. Are you a retail shop without your own house line? Do you already have your own e-liquids but lack consistency or confidence that maybe you're not offering a product you can stand behind? Your E-Liquids offers a turnkey 8-week program to develop your own line and includes help with marketing, branding, and expansion into a wholesale channel if you wish. For information, contact me here at Vape Radio. That's Norm at VapeMentors.com. I also want to let you know that we're offering free webinar classes on how to open a vape shop. We cover what you need to know about regulations, locations, size of your shop, and inventory. We're doing them every 2 weeks, and if you are not on our mailing list, you can visit VapeMentors.com and sign up for our classes. To say that I'm jazzed about today's show is an understatement. At Vape Radio and VapeMentors, we are proud to know some of the most amazing people that we call friends. Today, you'll be hearing from one of them. His name is Nick Green, but you may know him better by his nickname, Grimm. He's been part of our VAPE U classes, and we interviewed him last year, which I referenced in our call if you'd like to check out show number 43. What started as a brief 20-minute call went much longer, and we actually broke up our conversation into 2 parts. So let's get rolling. Today is part 1. So with that as an intro, let's rock. Well, this is Norm Bauer, and I am just so excited to introduce you to our guest interview today. His name is Grimm Green, but his real name is Nick, and we're not going to go into the story about where he got his nickname called Grimm because we actually did that in a prior interview back in December of 2014, show number 43, if you'd like to re-listen to it. But Grimm is what I call an icon in the industry. He's a leader in the industry. And rather than me telling everyone here who he is, because if you're one of the 3 or 4 people that are listening right now who don't know who Nick is or who Grimm is, then you're going to find out in just a moment. So, Grimm, welcome to Vape Radio.
Well, thank you for having me on. You talk me up way too much.
Dude, you know, what I love about this industry is the people that I consider to be, quote unquote, significant are always really modest and really humble. And dude, I know you on a personal level. We've, enjoyed a beer together and we've seen each other at several events, but you truly have carved out a niche. So I'd love for you to kind of explain very briefly how you kind of got into the whole vaping scene back in 2009 and just kind of bring us from where you were now 7 years ago into today. And then we're going to kind of delve into your insight and your vision about where you think the market is today. So why don't you introduce yourself to all the listeners all over the world?
Okay. My name is Nick Green. I go by Grimm Green on the internet. And as Norm said, we already went over where that name came from. But back in 2009, I was, a really heavy smoker. I was in a rock and roll band. And when you're in a rock and roll band, you play in a lot of bars and you're hanging out in parking lots and being, little hoodlums. And so you smoke a lot of cigarettes. And I was a really heavy smoker, and I had paused my smoking very briefly for a job. And I was, itching to smoke again. Once you're a smoker, you kind of, I don't feel like that ever really goes away. Even when I talk to smokers who quit cold turkey 20 years ago, they still occasionally get that itch to have a cigarette. And so I went online and I Googled, I was looking for fake cigarettes. I was looking for something that could be like smoking that wasn't smoking. And the market in 2009 was sparse. There was not much out there. We had these little tiny cigarette-sized batteries that were really weak and underpowered, and tiny little atomizers that didn't do much. And they worked okay, but not great. Certainly nothing like we have now. So I spent way too much money on a kit from eBay. It worked okay. I kind of became fascinated with it. I found the ECF forum. I started buying more and more product. And, you go your first 24 hours without a cigarette just from vaping, and I felt great. I felt like this was a huge accomplishment. So I kind of got on YouTube because a lot of my friends smoked, and I know there are, millions of smokers in the United States, and I wanted to tell people about it. So I got on YouTube and I started telling people about it, and I just started reviewing whatever I bought, and it kind of snowballed from there. It kind of got out of hand. It went from a hobby that I did twice a week while doing my full-time job to now it is my full-time job. So we've come a really long way since 2009. It's almost incredible, honestly.
You're absolutely right. It's almost as though that was the dark ages in many, many senses. I mean, a lot of things have changed over the years, but there's probably not too many things that have changed more than the vaping industry. You brought up a really good point. You said that even now, after as many years as you've not been smoking cigarettes, there is something compelling against cigarettes that causes people to still have that craving. Don't you agree?
I absolutely agree. I've been tobacco-free for 7 years now. I've not had a cigarette in 7 years. I was just in Las Vegas not a month ago with vapor friends. We were all vaping in Las Vegas, and there was something about being outside in Las Vegas and getting a waft of what smelled like a Marlboro menthol cigarette that truly made me want to smoke a Marlboro menthol cigarette. And I mean, obviously I didn't, but even after 7 years of happily vaping, being utterly content with vaping, all it took was being in the right place and having that smell, and it triggered something in me that made me want to smoke a cigarette.
We actually talked about that on our last conversation, how the desire to be one of the Rat Pack, to be one of the cool guys in Vegas, because if there's ever a place that is acceptable for cigarette smoking, it's probably Las Vegas. But let's fast forward. So today you are still posting reviews, and how are you deciding what products to interview, and are you doing reviews of hardware and of all e-liquids? And what's your criteria, Grimm, for what it is you look for in your review process?
I've been a lot more picky, I guess, in the last couple of months, just because the technology in the industry is moving forward so quickly that it's really hard to keep up. Even for me, and I do it 24/7, I'm immersed fully in the vaping world, it's hard for me to keep up. And so I tend to be a little bit picky. There's at least a couple hundred different sub-ohm tanks that are out there, and I can't review them all, and I don't really want to review them all. So, I gauge what I'm going to review kind of based on what people are excited about or what I would look at and be excited about. There was a time and place when I was trying to grow my YouTube channel where I would just say yes to everything. Anybody offered me any sub-ohm tank or atomizer or mod, I would just say yes. Yes, yes, yes. Send it all over. I want to review as much stuff as I possibly can. Everything that I could when I was trying to grow my YouTube channel. I'm still trying to grow my YouTube channel, and now I'm just a little bit more picky with things. There's, if I see a tank and I go, yeah, that looks like a lot of other tanks that I've already tried, and it has a top fill, and it uses a coil head, and it has airflow in the bottom. Thanks, I'll pass on that. But if I see a tank that, for me as a veteran vapor, I would be excited about, then that's something that I would be interested in reviewing. Or if there's a certain mod that I see people on Facebook going, hey, look at this, or on Reddit, then that's something that I can use to judge, on what I possibly might review. And one thing that I've done since the beginning that I stick to this day is I don't solicit vendors for products to review. I've just never done it. I never felt right about it, and I still don't do it. If I figure that if there's a vendor that wants me to review their product, then they can reach out to me, and we can do it that way. So there's a lot of times where I might see something really cool, and then said vendor or manufacturer never reaches out to me, and then I go, okay, well that's fine. That's something that won't get reviewed by me, but there's, other vendors just waiting right behind that. There's 100 vendors behind that person who are willing to send me something else. So, I get to be picky, but at the same time, I don't solicit things. So it's an interesting balance, but it seems to work for me.
Well, and it's not like you're arrogant about it. The truth is that you are there to provide a service for anyone who has something that is noteworthy. And if they continue to ask you, and if they have a compelling product, then obviously that's your decision as far as whether you do it. But if they kind of drop the ball, well, then that's their bad, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I certainly don't hold it against them or anything like that. And then there's been plenty of times where I've got a mod. There was one recently, and I won't name names, but I got it, and I wasn't into it at all. It was very complicated, and it ended up breaking on me. So I sent it back, and they sent a new one, and I got it again, and it was still very complicated, and then it broke on me again. So I sent it back, and I said, you know what? This is not for me. This is not a good fit. You can just hold on to that mod right there. And I don't want to have anything to do with that.
All right, so let me ask you, would you do a review that says exactly what you just said? Would you give it a bad review?
Yeah, absolutely I would give it a bad review.
You would.
And it's not that I'm not going to review this mod. This mod's already made an appearance in some videos, in my vlog videos. And so all I'm going to do is mention in a future vlog exactly what happened.
Yeah. The truth is you have an obligation, for better or for worse. You have an obligation to share your thoughts, and if a product is bad out there, just like a consumer report or just like any other type of review process, you need to be able to give it your Razzie Award that says, you know what, this product is not worth your money.
Yeah, exactly. And what I like to do, a good way to present that I've found, is to pose the question of, if I lost all of my vape gear today, would I go out and buy this? And that's really been interesting for me personally to go, I don't think I would buy this, or wow, I guess I would buy this. I think that's a much more interesting way to put it than just saying, this product sucks because XYZ.
Yeah. Well, there's no question about it. If you are compelled to use it yourself and actually go out and spend your money to do it, if you have the choice of hundreds of other options out there, then that speaks loudly. I want to get back to one of the biggest frustrations that vape shop owners have, because we did a little bit of a survey in 2015, and I wrote an article for Vape Magazine. And by the way, Grimm is also a writer for the magazine. He was actually voted the most popular column, and so he has a column called Ask Grimm, right?
Yeah, Ask Green.
Yeah. So you can ask your questions of Nick anytime through the magazine. But one of the biggest frustrations that vape owners have is staying on top of new and what they call quote-unquote upgraded products. And we talked about this while you were an instructor. So, Grimm was an instructor in our VAPE U program, and we talked about the challenges of dealing with some of the hardware manufacturers, and sometimes they make these little tweaks and modifications, and they call it a new version. Are you still seeing this trend continue, Nick? Are you still seeing that manufacturers are still coming up with, what you would call insignificant upgrades and calling it a brand new version?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it's more rampant than ever. In fact, I'm trying to do my best, and that's one of my things in being picky, is I'm trying to do my best to not get too involved with that. And, there's a good example. There was a tank I just got from China, and there was a company called Sense. We'll just name names right now. And they have a tank called the Heracles. It's great tank. The Heracles Plus, which added a top fill system to it. And then not a month later, they released the Heracles version 2, which is basically a shortened down version of the Heracles Plus. And I'm sitting here looking at all three of these products going, all of these are pointless. Like, you could take all of the good attributes of these tanks, make them into one tank, make that a product, and it would sell like bananas instead of releasing three very slightly different products that are all upgrades of each other.
No, I totally agree with you. I think they're doing themselves a disservice they're doing a disservice is obviously their supply chain. The retailers don't want to be carrying three different products of the exact same line, and wholesalers have the same problem. So,
Hmm.
right now, I want to talk about two things specifically. I want to talk about the hardware market, which you know very, very well, and I also want to talk about the liquid market. So, as far as the hardware market goes, right now, as we're speaking, we are in the middle of the Chinese New Year. So, the supply chain pretty much dries up. So, are you seeing any American manufacturers kind of stepping up and coming up with anything really compelling that hopefully is US made that is going to maybe at some point in time overshadow some of our dependency on China?
It's hard. There's some great US products out there. The problem is they are more expensive than what you can get from China. And so one of my favorite atomizers of all time is the Dot Mod Petri. I love it. They're really expensive, but I love it. I think it's a great US product. And the problem is they're expensive. And you can buy a similarly styled atomizer from China for a fraction of the price. And so that's the biggest hurdle for US manufacturers, of anything, tanks, atomizers, or mods, is the cost. A lot of people either don't understand the cost or they do understand the cost of it and they're just not willing to pay for it.
Yeah, this conversation's a little bit muddier than the original versus clone conversation, isn't it? Because a lot of people, and we don't see as many clones, I think, as we used to, and I'd love your information on that. But it seems like a lot of times in the years past, people were going with clones and then they realized they just weren't lasting, and so they would go with the originals. But when it comes to US versus Chinese made, if the American product is better, that's one thing, but if it's just plain more expensive, that's another thing. So do you see any difference in the quality of the US products versus some of the Chinese products?
Yeah, we don't see so many clones anymore. At least I don't see so many clones anymore. Chinese companies are having their own original products, and they're all, these are all kind of based off of the same thing. Like once you've used a rebuildable tank atomizer with like a two-post deck, they're all kind of very, very similar. Maybe a few tweaks here and there, but what China's doing is they have their own original products now and their own original branding. So I can't remember the name of the company, but they do the Mutation X atomizer, which is their own creation, and then they did the Mutation X version 2, and now they have their own tank, and these are all original products from China. So we see a lot less clones and a lot more original products from China. And so a great example of a US mod that I think is really fantastic but is very, very expensive, Kennedy Vapor just released the Ruby mod, and it's a mech mod with a built-in atomizer. It's a true hybrid device. The thing is, it's beautiful. Kennedy, Steve the machinist, the guy that makes these, has been a machinist his whole life. His machine work is just beautiful. The threads are beautiful. It is a gorgeous, functioning, and looking mod. But it's almost $250. I don't think that China's going to even try to clone that. I think that if you want this mod from Kennedy Vapor, the authentic will be your only option. And so you have to decide, are you willing to spend $250 on this device because there may not be a clone available?
I agree with you. And the reality of it is, Nick, is that there's a lot of people who will spend that kind of money. And here's why. I wrote an article talking about the divergent cultures of vaping and how we have truly developed a cadre of connoisseurs of e-liquids, that's pretty much a given, but also connoisseurs of mods to the point of where they look at this as being like buying a Lamborghini versus driving a Mercedes. Mercedes is a really damn nice car, but a lot of people really want those, not necessarily top of the lines, but they want something with a little bit of cachet, and they don't mind spending a little bit more for a product that they consider to be quote unquote better than a more mainstream product. Are you sensing the same thing?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. There's people that, are into the high-end stuff, and $250 is on the low end of some of the high-end stuff I've seen. I've seen, some of these stabilized wood devices and mods go for $1,200, $1,300. Expensive stuff, really super high-end stuff. So there's definitely a market and definitely a culture for it.
So let me ask you about pricing. And we haven't even talked about the e-liquid market, so I apologize if we're going to go a little bit longer to you, Nick, and also to everyone who's listening. But I want to talk about the pricing trends. In the e-liquid market, there is a little bit of downward pressure right now. What are you seeing in the hardware lines? Are you seeing prices being, outstripping demand, or are you seeing prices still holding pretty steady in the marketplace?
Prices are going down. And you know who we can blame for this, and this is in the best way possible, is Jabo. Jabo teamed up with a Chinese company named Wismec, and they released the Relo. And it's a 200 watt triple 18650 mod, and it retails for about $40. And this mod literally changed the game. It flipped the entire mod industry upside down because now you can get a really cool looking, really high performing mod at a very, very reasonable price. I see more people with this mod all over the place now than anything else. And now, you see the Vapor Flask comes out and it's $80, and people look at that and wouldn't, the Vapor Flask for $80 is a good deal. But when they can look at that side by side with a Relo for $40, people are going to go for the Relo. And I don't think they realize what they did, but they really changed the game with this one particular mod. It was unbelievable.
And so guys who are listening to the show right now, I'm going to look up all this information and put some contacts and some links in our website because you're giving us some really good value bombs, my friend. And so no, I'm serious. Like I said, when I did a story on the challenges of vape shop owners staying on top of technology, that's one of the challenges as far as keeping on top of the upgrades, but also the new products coming out. So let me ask you, if you were a vape shop owner and I said to you, Nick, I want you to give us a list of what you would consider to be the top 3 starter kits that most vape shops should carry. And of course, different parts of the country and different economic prices are going to have different demands and everything, but are there some, and we talked about this before in our last interview and during the course of the VAPE U program, are there still some tried and true, really good entry level products that you think that virtually every vape shop should inventory?
There's one company in China, Inokin, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. They seem to be one of, if not the only company in China that is really catering to smokers. Everybody else is going, sub-ohm tanks and point-to-ohm coils and clouds everywhere. And Inokin has a couple new products that I thought they just blew me away that are really geared towards smokers. They sell a kit called the Endura T22 and the Endura T18, and these are very simple, straightforward, easy to use tank battery combos that are more of a traditional, mouth to lung vape like you would smoke a cigarette. Nobody smokes a cigarette just breathing it into their lungs like we do with these sub-ohm tanks. They do a mouth to lung inhale, and that's what these Inokin products are doing. And so I'd say if you are trying to cater to smokers, that Inokin is probably the best company in China right now that's catering to that.
And I tend to agree with you. I look at vaping technology as being a little bit similar to computer technology. I used to be able to stay on top of things, and then the pace of acceleration and changes happened so quickly that it was truly boggling me. And so, in my 3 years in this industry, which is, nothing compared to your longevity, once upon a time, I used to know the products that were hot, but now it's like they change so quickly that they're hard to stay on top of. So, Nick, I'm going to ask you a huge favor. We haven't even talked about e-liquids, and what I would love to do is I would love to actually have our interview continue into part 2. Can I maybe peel about another 15 minutes of your time? And what we're going to do is that we're going to bring this particular conversation to an end, and then we're going to post the conversation about e-liquids and a little bit more about you and Namber Juice on part 2. Would that be acceptable to you?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's a compelling come on if ever I heard one. But, a lot of times when I do these interviews, we never know how they're going to last. But I love talking to Nick because he really knows his stuff. He's got a lot of great information. So, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up for today because we try to be respectful of your time. And we are going to pick this up in the next show. So, do not go away. We are going to pick up the next show in just a few days. Thank you very much.